Hi there, my friend. I'm Peter Barron. Welcome to today's episode of the Independent School Moonshot Podcast. I am thrilled to welcome Pete Moore. Pete is the head of school at Oak Hill School in Eugene, Oregon. I have had the privilege of partnering with Pete and his team over the past year. And Pete and I've had a bunch of conversations. I mean, we talk frequently. And one of the things that we have spoken about of late is this idea of fractional services. And as I scan, the market and talk to heads of school who are thinking about operational costs and the rising costs that are associated with running a school, I'm just starting to hear fractional a lot. Pete has developed a very intentional fractional strategy over time, and he's here today to talk about like how that all evolved and where he is, where the school is today with fractional services. So, with that, Pete Moore, my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Peter. I'm really excited to speak with you about this, and I love listening to your podcast, so it's fun to be someone who's being interviewed for it.
I've been looking forward to this all day. So let's go ahead and dig right in. So for those of you who are not familiar with you, Pete, and would like to learn more about Oak Hill, tell us about yourself and Oak Hill School.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Australia. I have lived in the US for 18 years. So my wife is from San Francisco, and we met in college when she was on exchange to Australia at my university from UC Davis. So we lived in Australia for 10 years together and then moved to the US in 2008. And so I now work at Oak Hill School, and Oak Hill is in Eugene, Oregon, and we serve students from pre-K through 8. We're on this amazing 72-acre campus with 40 acres worth of woods, which is pretty amazing. And so we have 168 students. The school has gone through a lot in a pretty short period of time, and we went through a strategic planning process a few years ago and then rewrote our mission last year. And the school's really focused now on experiential education. It has been sort of really focused on sort of hands-on learning, but we've sort of put a framework around that. And our mission talks about experiential learning and helping the kids think deeply and explore boldly. And thankfully, we're in a place now with strong momentum, identity, which is very exciting.
So I know like you said, a couple of years ago, you did strategic planning work, you rewrote the mission. So there's been a lot of change happening since you arrived a few years back. Take me back though, like when you were looking at Oak Hill operationally and then thinking about the traditional staffing model, some questions started to pop up. So like what was the genesis for all of this?
When I arrived at the school in July in 2023, so the school had gone through a really difficult period. The high school had closed about 14 months earlier. Enrollment was declining. We had wonderful teachers, a really engaged board, supportive donors and supportive families, but the school was just really not doing really well. And so we had limited resources compared to sort of other schools that I've worked at. And so I knew that we needed to really think differently and strategically about like how we sort of pulled the school sort of out of that current situation. So I did the listening tour initially, spoke to 40 or so members of our community in the first few months of the school year. And then there's sort of themes evolved, and one of them was that we weren't living up to our potential, but really it was just we needed to focus on our school culture, our operational excellence, and just what the customer experience was. But then really we found that the main issues we're encountering were around just sort of the operations of the school. And so we started doing a deeper dive into that. And that had us really think more deeply about our staffing model, how we were getting the services that we needed. And so that sort of initial conversations really sort of had us think quite differently.
So when did this idea of fractional talent start to emerge? I mean, was there a particular moment where you're like, this is the thing, or was it just something that evolved over time?
Well, when I first started at the school, about 3 months earlier, the school had put in a fractional CFO model. And so we had that in place, and they did a very good job of sort of professionalizing the organization and giving us a clearer picture of where we were financially. But then over a number of months of being at the school and digging more deeply into the finances, I realized that we needed much more sophistication. And so the finance chair at the time and me, we looked into what sort of other options that we could use for this sort of fractional model. And then we ended up partnering with a firm that's based here in Oregon called Kernet Stokes, which has this fractional arm. And so then we signed with Kernet Stokes, and the work they did and continue to do was just transformational, right? In terms of just our overall operations, in terms of all aspects of our finances, from our accounts payable to our accounts receivable, our HR, our payroll, to our long-term cash flow planning, to reporting. They just did a phenomenal job. And we ended up with a team of 6 that work on our account, and we pay a very reasonable amount of money for all of that. And it was just, I can't sort of overstate what an incredible impact they had. And so then it just made me look for other opportunities that we could use sort of a fractional model to really help transform other areas of the school that was struggling. And so it was really it was already in place. We enhanced it even more, and it was just really just remarkable what they did. And so then that led me to think, okay, how else could we leverage this approach?
Yeah, and I want to get into how you leveraged it in a second, but I just want to take a step back for a moment because somebody may be listening and they may be thinking, fractional. But I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, maybe some people have different ideas of what fractional is. So for you at Oak Hill, like at a high level, and then I'd love for us to kind of, keep going with the example of the CFO fractional service. But like, what does fractional mean for you at Oak Hill, and how does that actually look, at least at that CFO level to start?
Yeah, I tend to think of it as an outsourced model, meaning that the person isn't employed by the school and working at the school. So it's someone that you partner with that does this for really with multiple clients. And so for us, that means that Kernet Stokes runs everything to do with the financial side of the business, that if you had in-house people doing that, except that they do this with multiple clients here in Oregon. And so for us, I think it's the level of service that we get, the level of expertise is just phenomenal, and it is at a very, very high level. And so I don't necessarily think it as fractional, meaning sort of like part of a whole. It's really just that we just have this partner that works on our account that does the same job as what someone else would do if they were on site. However, we have 6 people as part of that team that do the work sort of in, just sort of as it needs to be done, and well, in these ongoing projects. So they're not working on just our account. But so it seems rather scary at first for people, but really it's just like having someone who's working virtually.
Why do you think it's scary, Pete?
I just think because in schools that traditionally everyone was in house,
Yeah.
like everyone was for whatever job. We need to hire someone to be on campus to do that work. And so I think my thinking around this was opened up with COVID because everyone was virtual, especially for that initial part. And as you're coming back, some people wanted to work hybrid, but then you start to realize, oh, that person can do an equally good job working remotely. And so that's where I think it sort of has opened it up for us.
How do you, so I have a couple follow-up questions to
Yeah, of
that.
course.
The first one is like, how do you interact with them on a day-to-day basis? Like, is there regular communication, or is there defined periods when when you're talking to them?
Yeah, so we have a regular scheduled meeting. It started, like every week when we first started with the whole Kernet Stokes team that's working on our account, and then it's gone to every 2 weeks. But then every day I'm just emailing back and forth
Right.
with the team. And so whether it be if it's the group that the part of the team that's working on our HR side, or it's working or it's the people who are working on our sort of accounts payable, accounts receivable, or then the 2 accountants that we have who are working on, our budget for next year, and how do we improve that, and have better reporting, and be categorizing our spending better, and like the long-term forecasting. So, and then there's periods of the year. So, like the last few months, as we've been preparing for our budget for next year, they're based here in Eugene, and so the partner of the business that's sort of the lead with our account, she was working with me and our enrollment director on site on our financial aid allocation and
Oh,
everything.
wow.
So then, they're very much involved in all of that. And so there's periods of time where it's pretty intense, right? Where they're working very closely, and we might be meeting more regularly. But then there's other times where they're really helping us improve the overall business. And so then that we have to spend less time sort of going back and forth now, like things are just smooth, that we're putting systems in place. And everyone who's working on our account is just exceptional. So it's just elevated us very quickly.
So that extends all the way to your financial strategy as well.
Yes, very much so. So they come to our finance committee meetings. They're very much in contact with the board, our long-term sort of forecasting, cash flow management, all of that. They're working on that on a sort of a multi-year basis, helping us with our relationship with our bank, how we structure our debt, all of that type of thing.
So, I'm curious. You've got this partner, and I know this is, the strategy has extended to other parts of the school as well, but you've got this partner. How do you begin to socialize this idea of outsourced fractional services to other folks within the school? Like, was there a period of transition there, or did it just all automatically that people are like, oh yeah, these are they do that part of the school?
No, when I first started, this had been in place for about 3 or 4 months, and there were some challenges at first because everyone was so used to just walking down the hallway and speaking to the person if they had a question about any of this, and then to jump on a Zoom call or to call someone, that felt a bit, I guess, clinical and cold. But then over time, like I very much see, our partners, whether it was the first business we worked with, first outsourced accounting firm, or now with Kernet Stokes, as, I mean, I refer to them as my colleagues, and so it's really just working virtually. So, but yes, at first it just does feel different because every other school I've worked at, whether here in the US or in Australia, those people are on site, and you can just walk down, across campus or down the hallway and speak with them. And so it does take a shift in mindset to go, okay, I need to, call them, schedule a meeting or something like that. So there is some growing pains initially.
Is there anything you did in particular to help kind of flatten that learning curve?
So much in schools is about building relationships. And so I feel that, whether it is with our team at Kernet Stokes or the other folks that we now work with, is that it's not a transactional relationship. Like, these are people who are very much colleagues, sort of work friends, people who we're really invested in. And so I don't really think of it really as employing people that are sort of outsourced to do something else. These are partners that we are sort of, locking arms with, and we're sort of going into battle with. And so I think so treating these long-term partnerships or short-term engagements as you would any other hiring is really powerful. And so I just think that, what really helped us was really think about, the personal side of things. And, these are people that I very much care about. They care about me. We're in this together. So I just think approaching it that way was really helpful.
And so now you've been doing this, you've been working with this, outsourced fractional CFO department for a while. And I know this strategy's kind of emerged in other areas of the school. How did it extend beyond there?
Yeah, it's extended quite a bit. It was so transformational for our school. And then just over time, we don't, our finances are increasing, others, enrollment's increasing, but really we just like, okay, we have a small amount of money. Like, how can we leverage this? And also, I was first introduced to this concept really when I was in San Francisco. I worked at the Chinese American International School, and we worked with an educational psychologist who we had sort of on retainer. We paid him for about 50 hours a year, and it was amazing the help that we got. He was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then also, I'm working, whether it's with board members or other parents at the school, getting to know very well that were entrepreneurs or had founded startups or worked at now large companies in the Bay Area, but they were there right early on, and they talked about how they sort of leveraged people that didn't work in the business to help them for either extended periods or for short periods. And so that was sort of living at the back of my mind. And so then really seeing how dramatically having the sort of outsourced CFO model worked, then when we were hitting pain points, I started thinking, okay, this model's worked. Where else can I do it? So now, then the next one that we started working with was a safety and security consultant. Her name's Dr. Olivia Ellison, and we work with her sort of on an ongoing basis. And that's been so instead of us going around in circles, because none of us are security consultants or like security experts, we say, what should we do with this? We meet regularly, and that's just our safety and security at our school improved immensely. Then after that, our marketing wasn't anywhere near as good as I felt it could have been, but I didn't know enough about digital marketing and developing a marketing plan, and so serendipitously, I got introduced to a new firm out of North Carolina called 38 House. And so I read an article that they wrote on the importance of having a marketing plan. I thought, oh, we need a marketing plan. And so then it was like how to write a marketing plan for a small school or something like that. And so then jumped on calls with them. They're a relatively new firm, and followed up with all their references. And so they did that. They have now taken on all of our marketing. They created a marketing plan for us. We now have our 4 key audiences, our 4 key messages. They run our digital strategy, and it's just been very effective. And then also, we don't have a lot of administrative support here at Oak Hill, so we have used Time Etc., which is for an outsourced executive assistant. So we had a small bank of hours every month that we could leverage because there were just projects that were just stalling because we're a very small leadership and administrative team. And so we've used Time Etc. So we've used folks for these sort of like ongoing engagements, but then we've also leveraged people for like sort of like time-bound engagements as well. And so, I mean, I could go more into those that we use as well. So we have this sort of like broad team of folks that we're working with.
And just comparing what your annual spend there is versus, say, you had FTEs, like is the school ahead, behind? Like where do you, yeah.
I mean, we're so far ahead. So for having our outsourced accounting, our outsourced marketing and digital marketing and strategy, our outsourced safety and security, a part-time executive assistant, for all of that. And it's important to keep in mind that with our accounting firm, we have a team of 6 that works on our account.
Yeah.
That's all of that costs probably less than what it costs if we were to hire one person, like a CFO. If we were to hire a good CFO that you would have at an independent school our size, all of that costs the same as that one person.
So clearly, like big financial impact, lots of
Huge
return on that investment. Have there been any less obvious benefits of this model that you hadn't anticipated when you started down the path?
Yeah, one of the main ones has been the friendships that I've made with folks. Is that I've just connected with such high level, phenomenal people. So that's been one. Another one would also be just how much I've learned. And so I'm going to just sort of step back a little bit. We've also do sort of more like time bound engagements. And this is where I'll talk about how great it's been working with you. So we've worked with Peter for our strategic planning implementation, which has been phenomenal. And then, we started working with the outsourced accounting. Then we worked with Ian Simmons and Associates to do our strategic plan. That led to you, Peter. And now we're also moving to work with a DEIB consultant to help move that work along, and we're a development consultant as well. And so we have these sort of long term, but then also these time bound ones. But
Right.
what is really so the other benefits are, we just get exposure to people who are sort of the leaders in the industry, and whether that's for the shorter term engagements or these longer term engagements, when we have a problem that we're looking to solve, it's just the level of guidance and coaching. Now, I'm very lucky. I work with phenomenal colleagues. We have an excellent leadership team. We have phenomenal, facilities team and trustees and teachers and teaching assistants. And across the school, we have really great employees. And however, when it comes to some sort of like really, how are we going to move the schools forward, like how are we going to implement our strategic plan, just the added benefits are just we get at, like sort of I guess sort of some of the the invisible benefits are just sort of how much we're all learning as a team because we're having access to,
Yeah.
especially our leadership team, to these other people.
Yeah. When I hear you talk about it, it's, first off, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with your team. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank
And,
you.
but you've built this stable of talent that your team can draw on when they need
Yeah.
it. And it, I would imagine, amplifies and accelerates their ability to, do really important work at the school.
Yes. Because we have access now to leaders in their field, is that our team, if they're struggling with something, they're able to reach out to that person and say, "Hey, I was thinking about this. What direction should I go?" And so it cuts down on the time that it should generally take to get to the right or best, or the most appropriate answer. So it sort of cuts down on that time. And also it's sort of like the built-in coaching. And so we've had this leadership development that has happened, and not just for me, but for everyone in our leadership team, as we're been moving these initiatives forward, getting access to people like you and to others, that if we have questions like how are we going to do this, what should we do there, how should we reframe that goal, like we're able to then reach out to someone and who does this for a living. It's just you get access to such specialized talent.
I'm thinking of a particular example. I'm not going to go into specifics, but there was, coming out of some of our planning, there was a thing that was assigned to you. And I remember looking at you and like, how are you going to get that done? Like, that's a big thing that you have to get done. You're like, oh, I've got these folks who are going to be able to do all this. And like, they're already doing it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, and I'm actually telling that story. So we work with Peter on executing our strategic plan. We have these 90-day sprints, and one of the goals that was or projects that was assigned to me was to do a communications audit so we can look at communications across our school. But because we work with 38 House and we have a bank of hours that comes with that engagement, I asked them to do it because it's their level of expertise, and we have the time sort of like bank to do it, and they've just done a phenomenal job behind the scenes, and they're about to present those results to us. And so again, it's just leveraging people who do this for a living, and it's it's the phenomenal thing about it is that it just propels your growth forward in ways that were pretty spectacular. And there's been many benefits of doing it. One is the coaching, the leadership, the ways that you can move many things forward at once. But there's been real tangible benefits, and so they were about to. So about to be 3 years since I started the school, and we started implementing this model and everything. And this is very much because of our teachers and our board and our community. But we're going to see a 40% enrollment growth over 3 years. We've had, record fundraising, and all of that is because we've made these, what I see as sort of micro moves. We've made these really small intentional decisions, both internally, but then we also have these thought partners that we can lean on. So when we get stuck or we're not too sure what to do, they help guide us. So, and that has just sort of compounded the success that we really couldn't have imagined just a couple of years ago.
yeah. It's really cool to see how far the school's come in such a short amount. I mean, 40% enrollment growth in, a challenging economy. That's pretty significant and, super impressive, Pete.
Yeah, and like the full disclosure, this really the success is like a massive team effort,
Yeah.
right? There is like for across the school, we've been very intentional about our school culture, about what it means to work here, about like attracting great talent, about supporting our colleagues, about making this a wonderful experience, not just for the students but for our families. And it's
Yeah.
just these, I love the book Atomic Habits, but just these micro changes or atomic change, small little atomic changes, that, as he talks about, it's happiness, like atomic level means small level in organizations that, they just do that compounded over time. And then you look back and go, wow, we've come a long way. So it hasn't necessarily been anything dramatic, but it's just been the great work we've done internally, and then just the partnerships that we've formed has been just pretty transformational.
I think schools are really, I mean, schools are obviously very comfortable with the idea of hiring full-time employees, but maybe this approach is going to require a different mindset. Like, do you find that there's a set shift that has to happen for this to work?
Yeah, and also like as I think some of my colleagues make fun of me because I love consultants so much and I love outsourcing so much. Like I think it's, oh, are we going to employ someone sort of externally or internally for this? And so there's the mindset shift is that we don't have to do everything in house, right? And that we can have this sort of entrepreneurial mindset when it comes to these type of things, is
Yeah.
that we're able to, you know we're able to put down with some positions, obviously not all positions, and but some positions that we have to forego the ability to just walk down the hallway and see your colleague, and we have to be intentionally deliberate about how we're scheduling time, and very intentional. We have to be very clear about sort of the priorities and projects, and then we have to build those relationships. But then really the mind, so once we do that, then so the mindset shift is really, we need to think like entrepreneurs. We have limited resources and time. How do we leverage expertise, and how do we really focus on sort of that impact and execution? And so it does take a little bit of rethinking like how schools are going to operate. But and that's, it is hard as you sort of, the schools move so quickly and everything, and you're building relationships with people virtually takes a lot of intentionality. You have to be very thoughtful and very deliberate how you build friendships and relationships. And but I think, I mean, you and I are a good example of that. I'd heard about you. I'd seen you present on a webinar. I'd heard the great work that you did. I reached out to you about an engagement, and now you are part of our team, right? Like you are someone who we rely on, who we count on, who we care about, and you with us as well. And so it is just that you can have these, relationships with people that work virtually and also with other organizations as well that are as impactful and meaningful as if they were on campus.
One of the questions that I've been thinking about, and I know you're a very analytical person, right? You like to break down things. Do you literally have a framework when you're like, okay, should this be outsourced fractional or should this be full time? Like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so the first thing that we really think about is, first it's like, what's an area that we're struggling in? Like,
Yeah.
is there an area that's a particular pain point or that we don't have expertise? And then, so let's just use safety and security as an example. Like, we were struggling with that. No one really on our leadership team or facilities team at the time, had the expertise around, just what we needed to do in multiple areas when it came to safety and security. And so okay, so that was the pain point. And then we thought, okay, can we either train our folks up to be able to do this, so that, or, can we find someone sort of expertise locally? And then the third one that we look at is, what is the upfront cost of doing this? Like if we were to hire someone, what would it be? And then, what would the cost be if we could hire someone on campus? And so then it's, combining them with like, can we find someone to outsource this with? So really the three things that we look at is, are we struggling in an area? Okay. Is there expertise locally? No, there's not. So, okay. So then if we were to hire a consultant, then, what is the cost of that? And is that something we can afford? So And so it's the safety and security one. So we sort of ran that through that matrix. We're struggling in this area. Was there anyone locally that we could either
Yeah.
have in house? And then we found like an outsourced person. Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is like, obviously you've figured out the places where outsourcing made sense for the school. Safety, security, marketing, finance. But that may not be the same thing for every school, right? Like, but having that kind of rubric allows you to figure out where does it make sense for us to outsource versus to keep in house. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think the first place to start is really where's an area of pain or friction that and sometimes you just think I just have to deal with this because we don't have the money to spend $80,000 to solve this problem. And
Yeah.
so then it's just, it's taking some time to go, what are the things that are really just like a point of frustration or you feel that we're moving very slowly. And then if you just list them down, you'd be surprised that what a sort of an outsource engagement you could probably find someone either in the independent school world to help with that who's worked with other independent schools or folks who work outside of our industry that could help as well.
Pete, this has been great. I really do appreciate you taking the time. If somebody wants to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so the best place to reach me is via my email here at school. So that's pmoore@oakhillschool.net, or just look up Oak Hill School in Eugene, Oregon, and call our front office and they'll put you in touch with me. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure, Peter. I'm
Yeah.
incredibly grateful for this opportunity.
Oh, I'm so thankful for you to share. I mean, look, everybody's going to have a different approach to outsourcing, but just to see how your journey has evolved and the impact that it's had on the school is really fantastic. Pete Moore, head of school, Oak Hill School, Eugene, Oregon, thanks again. And for those of you who are part of Moonshot Lab, hang tight. The extended interview is about to start.